between 12:24 and 4:57. It just doesn't work. So when he came, it was don't feed him after midnight. Now, of course, the interesting thing is it's always technically after some midnight, right? Right now, it's after last midnight.
That's right.
So that's what makes it so great, and why I'm not really that dumb when I break the rules, because how do you not break that rule? It's pretty much guaranteed to be.
That's definitely not his fault. Not his fault. No, you know, one question while I'm thinking about it, I had a chance to look at an earlier draft of Gremlins, and it's such a much darker tone of a draft. When you came on board for the film, was it starting to take the shape of the film that you ended up making, or was it still kind of in that darker tone?
Well, one of the things that people are kind of stunned to hear is that when I auditioned for Gremlins, they only gave us about 2 or 3 pages of the script to audition with, because they wanted to keep it nice and secretive. So the only thing when I auditioned that I had read was the walk home with Phoebe Cates scene where she talks about how she doesn't really like Christmas and that kind of a thing, leading up to when I ask her out on a date. So that's all I knew of the movie. So I read the scene with her. We actually got paired together, which obviously was pretty helpful since we got cast together. And when I was done, they called and they offered me the movie, and I was like, well, that's great. Can I read the script? And they were like, no. And I was like, what do you mean, no? You're offering the movie. I want to see what I'm doing. I want to see what I'm playing. Am I playing a hairdresser? I mean, I didn't even know what am I doing? They're like, you cannot read the script until you agree to do the movie. Wow. Which is kind of amazing, isn't it? And I said, let me think about it. Unknown actor, leading a Spielberg movie, he just did E.T., I'll do the movie. So I agreed to do the movie basically blind, having no idea with what I signed up for. All I knew was that it was called Gremlins. So I signed up for it, and then I read the script, and I was like, oh, cool, I get to do this, and oh, they jump in a swimming pool, and oh, I get to blow up the movie theater. Sorry, spoiler. Too soon.
I think you're clear at this point.
Yeah, so I basically found out what I was going to do after I signed up to do the movie. I'm not sure I've ever heard of any other actor that's ever had to do that. Have you?
Yeah. Actually, I did that too, and I think that is Spielberg's modus operandi. He keeps everything very secret, because in Hollywood, things actually do get stolen. Believe it or not, they're not that moral ethical in the entertainment industry. No. I know that's news to everyone. So he'll actually change the names of films. Like E.T. was originally called A Boy's Life. And when I did Poltergeist, I hadn't even read the script when I agreed to do it too. We just got a couple pages. It was the breakfast scene in the movie where I'm talking about like how the ceiling fell on my bed. And I didn't even know what that meant. So basically, I had to agree to do the film before I even got the script as well.
Wow.
So that's basically standard operating procedure. But you know Steven's involved. You know it's going to be awesome. And as a kid, I was just so excited. And my parents were overwhelmed with the fact that I was working with the guy who made Jaws and Close Encounters. And they loved his filmmaking there. So I was definitely on board, even before I had even looked at the script.
That's amazing. Any other questions out there, folks? Seriously, come up to the microphone. There is no
remake. I mean, I've heard mixed reviews about it, but I was kind of wondering how you felt about it. And of course, I doubt that Gremlins is going to be remade because, again, I said it's going to be like crappy CGI.
Well, I'm kind of torn about remakes. I think everything should be reinvented, and I think nothing is really sacred. And in film itself, every movie builds on itself. But I think if you are going to do a remake, reinvent it. Bring something new to it. Don't shoot it shot for shot or sling together the scenes that made the film special. And if you're going to do a remake, treat it as something precious, something that's important to you. And that was the thing about the Poltergeist remake is I feel like they really missed what made that film really work. Yeah, and I mean the key thing about Poltergeist that makes the engine and why that film has lasted as long as it has and separates itself from a traditional horror film is the family unit. The love, the people who truly love that family. You're rooting for them. If you watch the film, the first 30 minutes are really not that many special effects. Yeah, I watched it and I didn't realize, I guess, how good it was. I saw it last year for the first time on the big screen again. And that's what really came to me is how great those scenes hold up. The special effects are a little weak, they're of the day, and they worked at the time. But the family scenes, 50 years from now, you're going to watch that movie again, and they're still going to play. And I think that's, going back to your question about the remake, I mean, I think that's what they really lost in the remake. You have no chemistry between all these very fine actors, and it's a very fast 15 minutes where they set everything up. So you really don't care about these people, and then they throw in a lot of CGI effects, which on their own, they really do nothing. Because, you know, Steven, you know, before I went to film school, I asked him, what is the secret to filmmaking? And he told me, he said this key thing. He said, compassion will always win over camera. Meaning, you can have amazing special effects and all the technology, but at the end of the day, what the audience is rooting for are great characters and the relationship between those characters. And Steven wrote this original draft of the script. So he understood that very well. And he watched Jaws and Raiders and all these movies. You know, that's why we love those characters. And I think we've lost sight of that, you know, in some of these remakes, and even movies that aren't remakes.
I've noticed too with a lot of remakes, characters are kind of dull. Maybe a lot of movies, TV shows that I usually like because of the characters.
Right.
I kind of look at that stuff myself because I'm also an actor, or trying to be one. So I'm like to a theater major. I just graduated back in May, and thank you. But yeah, like that's just something I think about usually with movies or TV shows where people basically have to play a family, you know. That yeah, like it would help them, you know, if they're actually hanging out and you know, becoming best friends. Like that actually shows on screen.
Yeah, it completely does, and because you know, I think the camera is like a lie detector. It can tell when you're lying. You know, you have to be true, or you have to be an incredibly good liar. You know. And I think you're right. I mean, that's the best thing. I mean, you want to be able to hang out with your co-stars and develop that rapport, because it really does show on screen for the most part, I think.
You want to chime in?
Well, you don't have to worry about a Gremlins remake because Chris Columbus has the rights, and he said the first Gremlins is to his mind a near perfect film, and as long as he's alive, he'll never ever allow a Gremlins remake to be made, ever. So that bad boy will sit there nice and untouched, probably for the rest of most of your lifetime. But they are working on pretty hard on a Gremlins 3. That I know for sure.
That's awesome.
So we'll see what comes of that. They're still in the writing process, and that can take quite a while.
Sure.
So we'll see what happens to that, because you know every good movie comes from a good script. So
absolutely,
they better get a good script, otherwise it won't be good.
Absolutely. Question. This will be our last question, I believe. We're going to wrap up, so please ask away.
Well, hopefully you guys have some fun with this one. What, if any, roles have you turned down, and why? And if you don't want to answer that one, what roles do you wish you would have turned down?
I guess I would never turn down a role. When I was a kid, I would take anything that was given to me, pretty much, for the most part. But I did lose out on a lot. The roles I did lose out on, and I came really close, because even if you're experienced, you have to get used to rejection. And it's, you know, when you're acting, you really just can't take it personally. It's really nothing to do with you, no matter how great a performance. I mean, I was up for Doogie Howser, I remember.
Wow.
Yeah, it was between me and Neil Patrick Harris and some other gentlemen. And yeah, we read and did our screen test and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't get the part, you know, but you know, it had nothing to do with me. It's always about what they're looking for and how you work within the whole groove of all the chemistry of all the other actors.
It's kind of like what Zach chimed in on. If Dick Van Dyke would have been in the role of Rand Peltzer, it probably would have changed how they would have cast that film. It's a valid point. Yeah, so Zach, chime in on that, because it's definitely interesting to hear your all's perspective on this with what all you've had, the experience you've had.
Well, I really hardly ever turn anything down unless the script is just so dreadful and the budget seems so low that, you know, or my paycheck is so low that the whole thing is just kind of really bad script, you know, low budget, no paycheck. Like really, I'd rather kind of sit at home on the couch with my cats. But I will say, there are probably only 3 or 4 things that I've ever come close, really, really close to getting, that I sit around every now and then and go, wow, you know, if only I had gotten that would have helped me. And I'm sure you probably wouldn't know what they are. So I got the part of Alex P. Keaton in Family Ties, the Michael J. Fox role. I was doing something else at the time, couldn't do it. So that, you kind of look at that 7-year paycheck, millions and millions and millions of dollars. That kind of is a little brutal that I was working on something, you know, paid you like $1,000 for 2 weeks or something like that. So that's just the way it goes. But I would say the 3 movies that I sort of sit around going, wow, that would have been nice, are probably St. Elmo's Fire.
Oh, wow.
Platoon, Charlie Sheen part, and The Rocketeer. Those are probably the 3 movies that I came super close to and didn't get, and you go, wow, I kind of wish I got that. Oh, and Back to the Future, but I didn't really get that close to Back to the Future. I mean, I read for it, but I didn't really feel like I got like close up the way. I thought for sure I was going to get St. Elmo's Fire. I mean, the director practically told me after the screen test, and then something weird happened along the way, and it just didn't happen, which happens politically. Right, Oliver? I'm sure
it happens.
You're just like 99% sure you get it, and then something goes wrong, and you're like, how did I not get that?
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, I've probably gone up for thousands of things. So the fact that you only have 2 or 3 or 4 regrets like that, it's not that big a deal. It's not just part of the business. You know, you win some, you lose some.
Well, folks, thank you all very much. Again, thanks so much to Zach and Oliver. Thank you.
TV and a bunch of people coming out of trucks with gremlins, and people be like, it doesn't look like Monolith to me.
It's a pseudo sequel to 2001. It'll work.
Yeah.
Just trust me. Go ahead.
Hey, how you guys doing? My question is for Oliver. I kind of talked to him a little bit, but as a fan of Tobe Hooper, it's always been frustrating that there's not like a commentary track for Poltergeist, and so I was just wondering if you could talk about what it's like being directed by Tobe Hooper, because everyone always talks about it, like Steven Spielberg being the producer, but Tobe Hooper was the director. So,
you know, this is my experience with Toby. I almost had no experience as a child acting. Prior to doing Poltergeist, I had basically done 2 commercials. I'd done a fertilizer ad. I know that's very Shakespearean, and I'd done a Royal Oak charcoal commercial, which the charcoal didn't actually work, but that's another story. So I had 0 experience, and I was incredibly nervous. So Toby was a fantastic director to have around because he was very quiet, very subdued, and very calm. And I needed all those things because I was a really nervous kid. And I really, you know, honestly wasn't that great of an actor. But what I was good at was being myself and being natural. But I needed a certain environment for that to happen. So if I had a director that was on top of me, who bullied me or screamed at me, I don't know what would have happened with the production of the movie. I might have been even fired. So Toby really was a quiet kind of guy. He didn't really say a lot of things, but what he did say was so important. And the crew really listened to him, and they believed in him. And you know, that's one of the most important things on a film is the helm of the movie. People have to listen to them and follow their directions, and they really did with Toby too, because they loved his work. They knew what he had done before. And when Toby told me to do something or guided my performance, I listened to him, and for the most part, he let me do what I wanted because I was that kid. I became the kid. I was Robbie Freeling. So if something wasn't quite working, he would basically tell me, but in a very kind, gentle kind of way, too. And he kind of let me discover the role on my own. He never said, do this, this, and this. He says, be a kid. What would you do in this scene? How would you play with your food? What toys would you play with? And they actually let me bring a lot of my own toys to the set. And much of that dialogue, I actually just made up. That was a set, he was really into improv. And, you know, I was really spoiled on that movie because, you know, a lot of directors do not let you do improv. They're very specific on how you're going to walk 4 feet, you're going to hit the mark, you're going to turn right, the camera's going to dolly across, and you're going to say your line. And it becomes kind of robotic. While with Toby, he kind of let me just be a kid and act with Heather and Joe Beth, and that's why it looks so organic and real when it comes to those scenes, because they are very real.
Awesome. All right, we got another question coming up here.
What was the funniest moment you've had?
Guys, I'm sure with both of your sets that you've worked on, what were the funniest moments you've had on the films that you've worked on?
I would, you know, it's funny. Toby had this, I would say addiction, but he had this thing that he loved these lemons, these cut-off lemons with a Chinese plum, a dry Chinese plum. And I know it's going to sound crazy, but they're like amazingly delicious and highly addictive. He put the Chinese dried plum in the center of these lemons. So, you know, initially, like Joe Beth and I said, can I try that? And we started trying them, and we tried it, and we loved it, and it was delicious. So picture now, 80 people with lemons cut off, half of the lemon with a Chinese plum, licking them. Like they're like sundaes. But picture an entire crew. And it was the most ridiculous visual thing to basically see 100 people with lemon halves licking them on set, too. And this is like we're trying to make this serious movie.
So it's a scary film, yeah.
Yeah, it's a scary film. And that was like one of the funniest moments I probably ever saw. You really have to be there before to see that kind of thing.
I have no idea. Funny? Both of the Gremlins movies were kind of funny, but they were sort of stressful.
Oh,
I mean,
filmmaking's war.
It certainly can be, especially if you're on location and outdoors for long periods of time. Then it can really be a war. But no, the thing with both Gremlins movies were just kind of. They were a lot of fun, but they were pretty relentless grinds. I mean, each one was at least 4 or 5 months long, and you're working 5-hour days, 14 hours a day. And then after the human and gremlin parts were done, they would have only gremlin parts, like the bar scene, where you just have pure special effects, for an additional 4.5 to 5 months. Wow. So you're talking for Gremlins 1 about a 10-month shoot, and Gremlins 2 was almost a year-long shoot. So by the time Joe Dante was done, everybody was just ground into a pulp and completely crispy fried. I remember visiting the set one time, like months after I had finished shooting, and I was just like, hey, you know what, I'm by Warner Brothers. I know they're still shooting, I'll stop by. And it was right near the end, and everybody was just so grumpy and grouchy, and I was like, hey, how's everyone doing? And everyone's like, what are you doing here? Get lost. We don't like you anymore. They were so over it. I mean, it's like so much fun the first month. By month number 10 or 11, you're like, if I ever look at a gremlin again, I'm going to kill myself. So, I mean, the whole thing was kind of fun. I didn't really find anything really super amusing.
Well, when you're doing with, and both of you, in the situations you had two very big visual effects heavy films. With the Robbie Freeling situation there, you've got the clown, you've got the tree, you've got all the special effects that are done after that. With Billy Peltzer, of course, you've got all of the remote characters, the puppets, the remote control stuff. Talk a little bit about that, because I mean, that really has to be, as an actor, that's got to be a weird place to be, man. Zach,
actually, I just remembered the funniest thing. The really funny stuff we had was on the first Gremlins, when it was me, and Phoebe, and Judge Reinhold.
Oh wow!
Who played Gerald, whose part kind of got trimmed down pretty savagely. Luckily, in the Gremlins DVD, they restored some of the deleted scenes, especially one of my favorite scenes where Phoebe and I find Gerald has locked himself in the bank vault because he's mentally snapped and gone crazy. If you haven't seen that, you should go and watch that. But what was the next question?
They're just looking at when you're working on a visual effects heavy film like that, and especially like with you with Gremlins, they're creating technology on the spot with these puppets.
Yes.
You talk a little bit about that from an acting standpoint. You're also having to come up with the character motivations and relationships with the characters, but then you've got all of this extra visual effects stuff that you've got to worry about too. Talk about that process.
Well, I was 19. I wasn't really thinking too much in terms of process, the way that you kind of do as you're a more mature actor. But, I mean, basically, the key thing for me was I was head to toe in wires.
Right, yeah.
Just wires going underneath all of my clothes, dozens of them. And every time that they would work the gizmo, which I would be holding in my hand, the wires would kind of pinch my flesh on various parts of my body. Running all the way down from my ankle, up through my torso, up to, my hands. And so basically my process was trying to ignore the fact that sensitive parts of my body were being caught in cables every take.
And electrified.
So I was basically trying to ignore what was happening and pretend that you're having a great time with this cute little thing, which of course isn't, at the time it wasn't talking. In the movie it's talking and cute. But when I'm working with it, it's basically going and opening its mouth and saying nothing. So you just had to kind of jump in there and pretend that it was a real creature, which wasn't that difficult because it's even today, I think it's a pretty amazing effect. And, it's funny because the guy who created Gizmo, Chris Wallace, when we were doing it at the time was, and I'm not exaggerating, close to suicidal because he thought Gizmo was terrible. He thought it wasn't going to work, that people weren't going to be convinced by it, and that the movie was going to be a big bomb, and it was going to ruin his career, and he was only 27, 28 years old, and he was going to be finished. Of course, as it turned out, it was the absolute highlight of his career. It made him an incredibly wealthy man, and is probably what he's best known for. So he probably never realized that he'd peak at 28 rather than the opposite.
You're right, right.
Oh, I'm getting a call. So I basically had the same kind of experience. It's probably an opposite end of the